Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Easton Roofing. I've got a post-holiday gift for you, and for me, for that matter. I'm sure there was a combination of curiosity and perhaps an eye roll or two when you saw that I was doing a Kansas City profile of Jayne Siemens of Venice Communications. Not because Jayne Siemens of Venice Communications is not an accomplished person with a fascinating backstory, an interesting childhood, a laser-like focus on her passion of music that carried her to some of the heights of the ever so competitive opera world, attending some of the finest schools in the world, performing at the Chicago Lyric Opera and places in Europe and London and all around the world, as a matter of fact, but eventually doing what many artists have to do, decide to take a different course in their life while still trying to maintain the passion for the music they love. Jayne Siemens did that and eventually became the president of her own company, Venice Communications, a Kansas City public relations firm. But all along the way, she maintained the passion for music, and in the past decade or so has revisited it, and often still performs at recitals here and, in fact, across the pond in Europe, which she will do next month for a Valentine's concert in Halifax, England. All along the way, music has been the thing, but it hasn't been the only thing for Jayne Siemens, and that's why now she is the 20-year-on president of Venice Communications. The story of someone from a small town, Newton, Kansas, just outside of Wichita, who made it big and has continued to this day to accomplish great things, one of which probably isn't deciding to marry Danny Clinkscale of the Reasonably Irreverent podcast. The story of Jayne Siemens, a great conversation with her, coming up next on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Easton Roofing.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this.
Did you experience hail damage last year and never got the work done? Most insurance companies only give you a year to get the roof fixed, and if you don't get it done, you could possibly not be compensated in full for the replacement of your roof. If you've been procrastinating getting that damaged roof taken care of, give us a call at 913-257-5426, and we'll send out an expert to help you through the process. We're never pushy, we're just here to help. Easton Roofing. Integrity matters.
It's always a pleasure to catch up with Dr. Brad Woodle from Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture. There are 8 locations all around Kansas City, including the newest one in Raytown.
In Raytown, we just joined Raytown July 1st. We took over for a retiring doctor, Dr. David Frey, and we are just honored to see all of his patients and take care of the Raytown community.
And communities all around Kansas City with the best of care in a wide variety of fashions.
We do chiropractic using multiple techniques, acupuncture, disc decompression therapy, cold laser therapy, different physiotherapies, exercises, whatever you need for your bones, muscles, joints, and nerve pain, we can help.
Find that help at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture, 8 locations all around Kansas City. Visit ASFCA.com.
If you'd like to join these and other fine sponsors and market your business to Kansas City's #1 variety podcast, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to working with you. Ms. Siemens, tell me your first cognitive memories of being a little girl in Newton, Kansas.
Playing outside with my dad on Hillcrest Road with our good friends down the street, Dale Plummer and his family.
And what age would that be when you really kind of have a memory of that?
5-ish.
That sounds about the time when most people start to have memories. You were a girl of the early 60s. At that time, we were getting to be the mid-60s. What was it like living in Newton, Kansas at that time of Americana?
Well, it was a small town, and it was great because you got to know so many people, and everybody knew everybody. And it was kind of a unique experience. I think I appreciate it more now than I did then in some ways, because it was a very close-knit community, and even there was a lot of competition among the kids, people were still pulling for each other.
What did your dad do?
He worked just before I was born, he worked for Vornado Fans in Wichita and started their HR department when HR departments didn't exist. And then he worked for 30 years at Heston Corporation as VP of HR and Administration, which is was a large farm equipment company.
Your mom was an accomplished and college-educated woman, but she dedicated herself to you and your older sister and was a stay-at-home mom. What was she like as a stay-at-home mom?
You know, my mom was a perfectionist, and she loved a beautiful house, and she loved making sure that when we entertained, that people were having a great time. She was also an educator and child psychologist. She got her master's when I was in grade school. So I sat in the WSU library while she was getting her master's. And she worked with kids, and when I was in children's theater, she was there rooting everybody along.
When you have a sibling, your older sister, Emily, but she's quite a few years your senior. So when you were really young, like 5 or 6 years old, 6, 7, at that age, what was your relationship like then? Because there was a separation of a few years.
You know, she always, how do I put it, paved the way. She's a very different person from me, but very smart. And she was also in theater. And so, but she was very different. So I think it always took teachers a few minutes to go, oh, so you're this person.
When when did you feel like you had that? I know it was at a young age, but when did you start to feel that being a performer was in your blood?
Well, and this is in my bio, so I can say this. My mom had the forethought to put me in drama class when I was 5 and ballet in Wichita with this fabulous teacher. And I'll never forget the first time we actually did scene work. I was supposed to be a squirrel, and I was a hunting squirrel in the woods. And how I don't forget this, it's an interesting thing. I went out to the middle of the stage, took the stage, and immediately felt this sense of power and like, I love this.
How old were you then?
5.
Wow, 5 years old. And so there was almost from that point forward, there was not a single-minded focus, but this was something clearly that you had a passion for and were going to work at.
It was always there, yes. That's true.
And I'll take us through some of the steps along the way from the squirrel days of 5.
Well, funny thing was I actually was rather sickly in 3rd and 4th grade, and so I didn't get to go out and do all the tumbling. I mean, I was out during recess, but I always liked being inside getting ready for the next, children's play that was going on. But I actually, the first big moment was in 4th grade. I got to, like a lot of singers do, sort of found my voice at church and got to do a solo. They must have known I had some kind of voice because I just did it. And I don't remember, that's the first time I sang, and I haven't stopped singing since 4th grade.
Your father was obviously an executive in the company, and you mentioned the entertaining, and there was a lot of that was sort of a prerequisite of maybe that position. Do you remember ever, was this the type of thing where there'd be 12 or 15 or 20 people over at your house for a dinner party or something, and they trotted Jayne out to sing?
Oddly enough, that wasn't, thank God, because that would have been rather odd. I don't remember ever doing that. I do remember this at the country club. I don't remember this, though. I would still be in my swimming suit, and if they put music on, like there was a dance going on, I'd come out in the middle of the dance floor and start twisting. And so that might have given you some inkling of that had no inhibitions when it came to being in front of people. As a matter of fact, I just thought of another 4th grade memory. My mom let me audition for Wichita Children's Theater and had the opportunity to be the Little Boy Blue, the MC of the show where Helen Hayes was performing.
Wow.
Got to meet her when I was in 4th grade. And so there was that kind of energy going on in that area in theater, which was fabulous to tap into when I was so young.
What are your memories of that great lady?
Helen was the kindest person, and she actually took me under her wing for a few moments, which is amazing at that level, to talk to me after our performance, to share with me some of her history on the Broadway stage and what she loved about the stage. And we talked a lot about stage presence, because some people are gifted with that and others have to work at it. And so she talked about it originally having to work at that, if you can believe it or not. She's a rather shy lady, or was, and but you just don't forget. You don't forget.
People listening to this might kind of wonder what would have brought Helen Hayes to Wichita.
Well, we had an amazing environment in music and theater, and we still do in the Wichita, Newton area. Osythe Deersmith Moore, who was the drama and ballet teacher, she had connections to all of these people, as did Irene Vickers Baker, who was a well-known philanthropist in Wichita, and the Vickers name is
right
throughout. They had the connections to bring in people of Helen Hayes' stature, and that was a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Your family wasn't rich per se, but comfortable, I guess we can say, and a good position for your father, and only 2 children. I say only because I grew up in a family of 6, and I know the limitations that can put on it, and we likely would have had more if circumstances were different. But anyway, you were afforded a lot of opportunities. Your family traveled a lot, and so you were kind of a worldly young person, I guess.
Well, it's funny. We traveled. That's true. We did travel. We were in Hawaii when I was in 2nd grade, and then in junior high, we did end up going to Europe and London. And I remember vividly being really affected by the UK and wanting to spend more time there. And it was tremendous, because learning more about different cultures, no matter what you do in life, I wish more of our politicians would be thusly educated. But that was tremendous, and eventually that really helped, having had some of that background as a child.
When you're traveling, you did a lot of road trips. I know that, a lot of driving. And as I said, you had a sibling who was a little bit older than you, not like you were 1 or 2 years apart. What were the dynamics of that like? I've heard some of the stories, so...
Oh, my God. Well, Emily and I can attest to a couple of memories. You just don't forget, when you're sitting in the back seat, on your way to Michigan or something like that, and you start throwing things at each other in the back seat with 2 dachshunds, fighting with each other. And, you stop for things like Lay's potato chips, Wonder Bread, and, cold hot dog sandwiches. You don't forget. But you know what? We actually ended up, we used to be able to drive into Mexico. We'd go down to Mazatlan.
Right.
And we had a great time. Emily had her birthday down there and had a fantastic piñata party, but she was sort of other directed. I stuck myself in the bathroom and started, how do I put this? Playing characters with my dad's then bowler hat in the mirror, and I locked myself in the bathroom in Mazatlan. You don't forget a day like that. They had to shimmy up a ladder to get me out.
How would you describe your parents' relationship from the view of a young girl as you were growing up? I mean, a lot of times you don't see maybe what you would hear later, and most people probably have a rather idealized version of what their parents' relationship is like. But what did you feel like it was like?
They were very intense German perfectionists in their different ways. My dad was calmer, and yet he was rather authoritarian, but very kind and very loving. And my mom had an ear for music because her whole family and my grandfather on her side, which I never knew, they all played instruments and she sang. So she was always inspiring me to do what I ended up doing for quite a long time. But, there was no question that she was one sort of managing the household. I mean, that's probably not that unusual for most families, but she was a perfectionist, and you could tell, and everyone knew it. She could be really tough, but on the other hand, that was something that was very valuable to me in the long run.
You seem to have thrived on that particular structure and discipline at your young age and seem to be maybe more